All right, everybody, we are here today to talk about the PS3 and video game collecting, but more specifically, to answer the question, have PS3 game prices really gone crazy? Because this is now a focal point in the retro collecting community, and yes, let's get it out of the way right now. PS3 is retro. The son of a gun came out when I was in middle school, okay? this this console is retro. I've had this conversation with a couple of different people. None of them seem to think the PS3 is retro. Wake up, people. Like, the PS3 is old now. It got an extended life, and this is something Adam Corlick talks about in his videos at ad nauseum with the 360 and the PS3. They just lasted forever. But come on, man. Like, these things came out almost 2 decades ago. Like, come on. Okay, so a lot of people have made like must own PS3 games, hidden gem PS3 games, collect these PS3 games before they're gone. You've seen it all before. There's hundreds of YouTubers. Some of my favorite YouTubers have done videos like this. And now I noticed the attitude is starting to change. It used to be that, collecting for PS3 was foresight, but it wasn't sexy. No one wanted to hear about your PS3 collection. They wanted to hear about your Super Nintendo, your Genesis, your NES collecting. But here's how things work, okay? So when YouTube got started, it got started off a bunch of people who maybe were in their early to late 20s, early to late 30s, who had grown up during the video game boom of first Atari and then the NES and finally Sega and Sony and Microsoft all jumping in. But they got started with the Atari and the NES, okay? So when they started their channels, it was all like, for example, the NES Pursuit. Let's get all the NES games. And many more people like that who are collecting Atari or collecting NES. Now, you don't see those videos around often. I mean, go look at what the NES Pursuit has turned into. They collect a lot more stuff than just the NES because time just keeps moving on, right? So, as the Super Nintendo came out, okay, the kids that grew up with the Super Nintendo are now in their 30s. I was born in 94. Then 64 came out in around 97, 96-ish. And I didn't get one until about 2000. Or at least that's when I remember playing it, So now I'm 26 basically, so I collect N64 games, I collect GameCube games, right? Because that's what I grew up playing. And now we have to realize that 5-year-olds, when the PS3 came out, are, about 20 or so, give or take. And if you were 10 when the console came out, you're about 25-ish, okay? The PS3 came out at some point when I was in middle school. So the people who collected for the PS3 are now old enough to have jobs. They are now old enough to be nostalgic about the PS3. We knew this day was coming. Now, personally, I didn't think, okay, the PS3 was mass produced. It's different than the NES. It's different than the Atari, right? I didn't think we'd ever get to this point. It's so mass produced. However, being a comic book collector, 90s comics are starting to get expensive. Is that because the people who grew up reading 90s comics are now, buying them? Is it because they're pulling from a lot of 90s stuff, like Valiant stuff had a movie universe proposed. Carnage is about to be in a movie. All those 90s books, is that why? Or is it because the people reading it are now putting money into the hobby? I don't know. But now I'm accepting that the PS4 is probably going to have its day in the sun, even though that makes no sense. And games are starting to become digital and need patches, and I'm just worried about the collectability of it. But the PS3 is proving, at least for now, hey, all these consoles are gonna have their day in the sun. You just need to be ready for it, because we're starting to see people go, well, you know what? The PS3 is interesting now. I'm going to collect for the PS3. We hear people discussing the nuances of PS3 collecting versus 360 collecting, which is something you hear about PS1 and N64, the disc versus the cartridge, right? Super Nintendo versus Genesis, with like Aladdin, for example. The original Xbox versus the PS2. It's always a debate, and when people are debating that and it's not the current console, I think that should be kind of a heads up. People are discussing the Blu-ray disc of the PS3 outlasting the 360. Okay, so or how the 360 was the best-selling console out of the gates. So a lot of PS3, a lot of the multiplats were ports of the 360 game, meaning they ran better on the 360. We're hearing people discuss this now, which means people are going to draw the line in the sand for whether they feel one way about Sony or the PS3 or the 360. I've heard Pete say, people who collect PS1 and PS2 games are naturally going to progress into the PS3 because it's going to look better with all your Sony stuff lined up. It's going to look more interesting than PS1, PS2, 360. We're having these discussions, which means the PS3 and eventually the 360 are going to take their rightful place in this whole discussion, this whole retro collecting universe. Okay, so I've been watching videos about people who mostly collect for GameCube or N64, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PS1, PS2, right? They're starting to pick up PS3 games. They're starting to go, it was there, PS3 games. Okay, so does this have the staying power? I'm not sure. Which is why I'm not going out crazy and being like, I need to buy all these PS3 games. I'm going, okay, let's just take it easy. Still buy what you want. Don't go crazy. And just see where we land. Okay. So that's kind of just my quick overview. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on why we're starting to see PS4 or PS3 games prices spike. Okay. So you're going to have heard each of these points at some point or another, but rarely have I seen a channel put all the pieces together. Even when I was watching Pete's in-depth video, he did like a 40-minute in-depth video, because what Pete does is he does on his Twitch game hunting on eBay, okay? And it is pretty good, because he'll discuss trends with games. If he sees a good link, he'll post it in his chat for someone to pick up. He breaks down kind of the value. Could you resell and make your money back and keep the best game in there? It's very informative if you're a collector, who uses eBay or that whole system of sell some of the games, keep the good stuff, whatnot. Very informative content. And he said, I've been noticing these trends, and he was discrediting some of these points, or at least downplaying some of these points, which I felt was kind of an injustice, but, definitely not challenging him, just my own opinions. I would have assigned more weight to some of these things. Okay, so here we go. Let me find my notes because I want to be thorough with this. Okay, here we go. In a nutshell, 3 things happened. 4 really, but mostly 3. The first was COVID. Okay, this is what everybody blames. This is what we blame the last summer's Wii price. Okay, because where I was going with that is we jumped in line. Okay, so the GameCube has about another 5 years or so of riding out these really expensive $60 games or $200 game kind of phenomenon, and the Wii cut in line. The Wii stole all the glory, okay? And that was weird. People were digging out Wii games. People were going to Goodwill looking for, $2 Wii games. Games that hadn't been relevant. And some that I think were good and due up, they jumped from $20 to $90. Just dumb stuff like that. Every YouTuber was making a video about, I'm going to sell my Wii collection and make a lot of money. It just cut in line, and a lot of people blame COVID for that. Getting stuck at home, the generation that was getting stuck at home, the generation that was so sympathetic about staying home and flattening the curve and all this, were probably people who grew up on the Wii. That's a gross generalization. I'm just speculating there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So these people are stuck at home, did unemployment checks, play a role in that. Who knows? I'm not really here to judge others or say otherwise. I work in a video game store where when stimulus checks roll out, people came and bought Pokemon cards. You get what I'm saying? Not judging anybody. It's just kind of, what's the word? There is a word for your own personal your own personal experiences, equating that as data points. Okay, I can't think of the word, but it's just kind of what I've seen. Okay, though personally, I don't feel like you can fully blame COVID. I saw people in Pete's comment section saying, Pete, it's simple, it's COVID. I don't think it's completely COVID. All right, here's why. People were stuck at home last year, possibly more because most of the country was in shutdowns, and the PS3 didn't spike. Okay, and last year had unemployment checks running all through it, and not everybody needed them. Okay, so people were going to have more disposable income, and they still were not buying PS3 games off the shelf. There was a time you couldn't get a Wii. My local game stores, none of them had Wiis, okay? We had to go to, like, McKay's to find, or Goodwill and McKay's, and you had to be thorough to find the Wiis, okay? Wiimote prices spiked. Nunchuck prices spiked. Like, Wii was one of the most influenced consoles of COVID, all right? Not the PS3. Not in my opinion. I don't remember anybody talking about the Wii, all right? And then this year, stimulus checks have rolled out. And again, I work in a store. We sell video games. We sell Pokemon cards. We sell all this stuff. People aren't coming in asking for our PS3. They're coming in asking for our Pokemon cards and PS4s, all right? No one is coming in asking about PS3 crap. So, could it be playing a role right this second? Possibly. But I think that's just because people who might still have unemployment or might still have their stimulus check or some kind of just disposable income, I think that's only because the attention is now on the PS3. Okay, they're being told by YouTubers, hey, you got that money? Go buy PS3 stuff. All right, secondly, and I think this is the biggest offender, and you guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. That's the whole reason we're even having videos like this, is because Sony threatened to close down the PSN for the PS3. I just think it adds up. I think it's the biggest catalyst. Prices, admittedly, were probably already trending up because that's what games do in this hobby. But what it did was it threw the spotlight on the PS3. People were talking about the PS3. People were making videos about the PS3, okay? Now, Pete, this is where I disagreed with him. He tried to discount or discredit this theory, okay? He said, why would a physical collector care about Sony closing down the PS3 PlayStation Network? And I think there's two reasons why someone would care, as someone who cared himself. Myself, I'm talking about a personal experience here, okay? One, it highlighted a lot of must-have games. Everyone knows Radical Reggie, Metal Jesus. If you don't, check them out. But they did, must-have PS3 games before the store's gone. They talk about PS1, they talk about PS2, they talk about some PS3, some digital only, and some that may have got a physical release. But what was so different? Because people have done hidden gems. People have done, buy these PS3 games before they're gone. They've done those videos in the past. In my opinion, the biggest thing missing here was that people were now actually looking for this content. Like myself. If YouTube was like, dude, check this video out. It's called, get these PS3 games before they're gone. I'm going to be like, yeah, I need to get these PS3 games before they're gone. That just started here recently, right? So, yeah, Jessica and myself were someone who loved the PS3. I already had my Ratchet and Clanks, Fallout, Red Dead Redemption. I already had a lot of the games that I wanted on the PS3. But it was now like, okay, yeah, what else is out there? Okay, people are making a big deal about the PS3. Let's go see what's good. Like, what am I missing? All right. So I think you can't discredit the PSN debacle. I don't think you can, because people went out and bought PS3 games. The second biggest thing is the threat of getting patches for games. I've heard this mentioned. I've heard YouTubers say, I picked up this PS3 game because if they're going to close down the PlayStation Network, I needed to get it and get it updated, because if I don't get the game updated before the PSN shuts down, I won't be able to get it updated. I've seen pickup videos where they've talked about, hey, I got this PS3 game because if Sony's really going to shut this down, I need to get this for the patch. So, I get where Pete's coming from, okay? Like, why would you care if they're closing down the store? Just go buy the games you want at a physical brick and mortar store. But I don't think it's that simple. All right. The third cause is one we've talked about, okay? They're not easy to find at GameStop. Jessica and I went to GameStop. They had like 10 PS3 games. They had like Mafia 2, some Metal Gear Solid game, Kingdom Hearts. Okay, that was about it. Then you're talking about MLB and stuff like that. So it's not out there. Jessica went to Walmart, said there was one PS3 game. All right. Yeah, these games are dirt cheap when they're everywhere. And for the record, they're still everywhere. You just have to know where to look. And I think it's going to get to the point where the PS3 was attracting to casual gamers. And those casual gamers aren't going to know about, oh, I can get on a Facebook group, or, oh, there's local video game stores, or there's places like McKay's and 2nd and Charles down where I live. So, yeah, I know where to look. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to panic. I know where I can still go get 99-cent PS3 games. But for a lot of people, do they know that? Because when they walk into their GameStop, there's no PS3 games. So if they want, say, the Jack and Daxter collection or some Sly Cooper game or something like that, they may go look on eBay, which is we'll get to. Not a good idea. So, yeah, these games aren't everywhere they used to be, okay? There's this funny theory about Earthbound not being rare. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, okay? So in my life, I've seen maybe like 4 Earthbounds, okay? But I've heard a lot of people say, I go to a game convention and I go over to this one vendor and they've got 12 copies of Earthbound. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. 12 copies of Earthbound. That's crazy for a rare game. Then I go over to this vendor. They've got 10 copies of Earthbound. I'm thinking, okay, there's 22 copies of Earthbound between these two people. What's going on here? Then I go over to this guy. He's got 3 copies of Earthbound, right? And it's like you start getting the veil pulled out from underneath you or from over your eyes or whatnot, right? Like, Earthbound isn't that rare. At least that's how I've heard it, okay? I don't see a lot of Earthbounds, but I've definitely seen more Earthbounds than Chrono Triggers. I've only seen one Chrono Trigger. More than, Rocky and Pocky 2. There's a lot rarer games than Earthbound, right? But which one's the one the internet chose to just go gaga at the mouth for? It's Earthbound. So Earthbound kind of has this mythos that it's this super rare, hard to find game. And in fact, there's just rarer games. And I think the Wii U will be the same way. I really do think the Wii U will be the same way because I told Jessica, like, Phineas and Ferb Quest for Cool Stuff, I've only seen one copy. My copy. And that's how it is for a lot of Wii U games. The only copies I've seen of them are the ones in my collection. I drove an hour down to a video game store because they said they had Funky Barn in person. I bought that Funky Barn for $30 and I was like, yes, I just got a heavy hitter on the Wii U. The next day, or the next week, I was in a 2nd Charles, found a sealed copy of Funky Barn for $15, and I'm like, maybe Funky Barn isn't as rare as we were making it out to be, because I just found a sealed one for $15. Dumb stuff like that happens all the time. Where am I going with this? The same could be said for the PS3 games right now. They aren't rare. I mean, some of them might be truly rare, but they aren't rare, okay? But you're not going to see them anymore. And the internet is telling you, hey, these are expensive. These are hard to find. These are hard to get. You need to get them now. When in actuality, maybe not, right? But at least you need to be in the know. You need to know that games you were tripping over 2 years ago, some people are going to try and tell you they're rare. Okay, and that's what it boils down to. The fourth reason is another reason we've talked about. YouTubers. Like, okay, YouTubers live in this weird space where, honestly, you need to thank your YouTubers because they have opened your eyes to so many games that you never would have played or never would have heard of without their videos. But unfortunately, people who are quicker on the draw with more money are going to be buying up these games, making it harder for you to get them. But without the YouTuber, you never even would have heard of the game. So, look, everybody loves to blame YouTubers for price spikes, but the fact of the matter is they're turning you on to games you never would have heard of yourself. So at some point, you need to be thankful that they're even doing that, right? But at the same time, it is a problem. Fear of missing out is one of the biggest influencers for people buying useless junk, and I believe that this is happening. Just 2 weeks ago, it wasn't cool to collect for the PS3, all right? Now I'm about to film my PS3 pickup video. It may already be out. I don't know the order I'm going to do this in, okay? So I might have already put out my PS3 collection video, or I might be about to put it out. But that's how things go. Like, PS3's hot right now. I'm going to film a pickups video, or, my PS3 collection, and put it out into the world and see how it does. That's just where we are right now. So that's how we got here, okay? We went over the cyclical nature of video game collecting, how kids who owned the PS3 are in their 20s now. What kids that owned the PS3 are in their 20s now. It's no longer at GameStop. You're not able to find it nearly as easy. YouTubers are talking about it. The PSN shut down. People locked at home. COVID, unemployment, stimulus checks, people not knowing what to do with their money, people being told you need to buy PS3 games before they sell out. This has been brewing for a decade. All right, people have been making these must-have PS3 games, hidden gems, get these before they're gone type videos, and I'm definitely not blaming any of those people for this. They've been doing it for years. It's just now the spotlight is on the PS3. And it's a perfect storm. I mean, no one's to blame. Well, maybe there's some evil people to blame for market manipulation, but short of market manipulation, no one is really to blame for this, okay? This is what happens. PS3 gets said, hey, it's cool to collect for PS3. People with money say, all right, I'm going to buy that crap. It happened with the GameCube. It happened with the Genesis. It happened with the Super Nintendo. It happened with the Nintendo. It happened with the Atari. It's just, it just happens, okay? The PS4, the Wii U, like the PS3 beating the Wii U to retro collecting relevance surprises me, because the Wii U has a nice underground following of people. I'm on the Facebook group for it. But it has not even hit its limelight in the same way that PS3 is doing right now, okay? So there's still time. That's all I'm saying, all right? Just collect for what you love. That way you won't be upset at the price. I mean, that's what it boils down to, okay? So, have PS3 games truly gone crazy? Relatively speaking, possibly. But this is nothing compared to GameCube collecting, and I use GameCube collecting because that's what I'm doing, all right? When COVID hit, that changed everything. $10 titles that you were like, this is common $10 junk, I'm going to wait on it. We're now up to $20, $30, $40, okay? One of my personal experiences is Paper Mario, one of my favorite games of all time. One of the games I absolutely wanted in my collection when I started retro video game collecting. I found it on Facebook Marketplaces for $60 to $80. I held it at my local game store for $60, and I said, nuh-uh, not doing that. I put it back. That game priced out at like $200. Chibi Robo is another game. I saw it on eBay and GameStop for like $40 to $60 a couple years ago. That game is like $200 now, okay? Games that aren't rare being $200 is insane. So everything is overpriced. You would walk into your game stores and you'd be lucky if they had sports titles. And if they did have sports titles, get ready to pay $10. And you're like, what in the world? These were $3 a year ago. So, PS3 is nowhere near that. Could they get there? Sure. Retro game stores still have healthy sections that haven't been rated or the prices have jacked up on. So maybe things are different here in the South. We don't have a big collecting video game scene. The closest dedicated video game convention is South Carolina, and I think there's one opening up in Alabama. Now, Georgia and Tennessee have video game cons, but Southeast Game Exchange in South Carolina is about the only one with national relevancy, whereas PAX is up in Boston, out in Seattle, I think in Texas, and then there's like Too Many Games, which I think is Northeast. I don't want to say anything dumb, but I think it's up there. Game Chasers have their con. What is it? Game On Expo. There's a lot of conventions and expos out west, not so much down here in the south. So maybe we just don't have the collecting scene. So I don't have to stress. I didn't really have to stress about GameCube games being bought. I had to stress about prices, but not about losing out to competition. eBay is a lawless land. Games are doubling in price. So when I was writing this, May 3rd, Sly 4 Thieves in Time, I think it is, sold for about $38, $35 or so. Later, like the next day, it was selling for $80. It's like, what? So, yeah, don't buy on eBay unless you have to and it's something you really want so you don't feel bad about paying the price. So my thoughts are, things are mostly crazy online because there's always a fool online, okay? Not necessarily in stores. If more fools come out easily parted with their cash, prices in person may go up as well. Until then, I don't really feel threatened down here where I am. Hopefully you guys have a good little underground hunting spots. All right? So I'm going to keep monitoring this situation. I'm going to keep going to local game stores. I'm going to keep following eBay trends. And maybe we'll revisit this in a week, in a month, and see, are prices still insane? Are people still thinking the PS3 is cool, or have we moved on? So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Let me know if you guys are tired of hearing about the PS3, or if it's something you really enjoy hearing. Either way, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.